When I first met the Master in 1920, Christmas Eve, and he said to me, some of the first words were, "Will you always love me, Doctor, as I love you?" Well, those words were something different than I had been accustomed to hear, especially on perhaps the first visit to a person. But when he said those words, he aroused something within me. And that something has been going ever since. And so, when he showed me things of the Spirit which I was searching for and which my soul was crying for, when he showed those things to me, of course, I was very grateful. I asked him what I could do, and he said, if after allowing me to discipline you and practicing the techniques and self-realization, if it helps you, will you help others? And I said, I certainly will. And so, it is with that spirit that I have carried on his work as best I could, because he did so much for me. And I know that what he did for me, he can do for each and every one of you who will be loyal to him, practice your techniques, and allow the omniscience of God, of which he was the voice, to work through you. And so because he asked me to do those things, I notice sometimes Mr. Rosser mentions my name. It is for no other purpose that I allow it, except that perhaps I can help his work. And as he blessed me so much and saved me from delusion, that's why I want to do all I can to further Master's work. That's the only reason that I allow Mr. Rosser to use my name. Just to help you as the Master helped me, that's all. Such gratitude comes from God. When you feel his presence, lift your soul out of this delusion that anything you can do is far above the little rewards of position or the use of your name. So realize that. And I know you all feel the same who have tasted the presence of God through the efforts of the Master, who gave his life, as he said, as a ransom for many. Let us do what he has done to partly atone for the blessings which we have received. And it is with that spirit that I come up here once a month, because I feel here tremendously the presence of the Master's love. And I know you all feel. And that's what he wants. Love alone will save this world. Love alone will change the hearts of men, and love alone will bring lasting peace on earth. And so if I can do a little, and I know you all feel the same way, let us do it. Subject this morning, be a smile millionaire. Be a smile millionaire, or the attitude toward life. Your attitude toward life. A little poem comes to my mind. Perhaps some of you have heard it. It's easy to sing and shout, and we should add smile in there, when life goes along like a song, but the man worthwhile is the man with a smile when everything goes dead wrong. Now that seems a paradox, but you can smile. You can smile when everything is going against you if you feel the presence of God with you. Because the presence of God is far above this outward worldly living. And even though things are going dead wrong against you, if you know he's with you, it makes no difference, because you are a success you are far above the limitations of worldly existence. And so that way, with those conditions, so to speak, you can really say and mean that little poem. Another one I like to quote on this subject is about the optimist, who fell 10 stories, and at each window bar shouted, "All right, so far." So that's real optimism, isn't it? I thought that was quite something. All right, so far. Another little quip that came to my mind you might like is that money talks, I don't deny. I heard it once, and it said goodbye. This subject, being a smile millionaire, we must smile, at least in the beginning, even though in the end we're not smiling. We must smile. And so, nobody likes the person who doesn't have a smile. No one likes that person. I'm sure you all agree with that. They're called by various names, those kind of people. Killjoys. I was glad to hear Mr. Rosser mention that. Killjoys, wet blankets. And coming up this morning in the car, I asked, what are some of the other things they call people that don't smile and are not exuberant and so forth? And someone said, sad sacks. So there you have it. Sad sacks. But these things are very important, because these smiles which we have, they come from the state of consciousness within. State of consciousness is very important, as we will talk about a little later. State of consciousness. But most people are so busy with their own affairs, so busy with this fast pace of life, so busy minding their own affairs and minding the affairs of others, that they do not have time even to smile. But it is quite necessary, and it can be done. I was thinking about, of course, this subject this morning is the attitude toward life. The attitude toward life. This man was so busy that he was jumping around all the time, snapping his fingers. All the time snapping his fingers. Not smiling, just snapping them. And so this friend of his said, "What's the matter with you anyway?" "What is the matter? You got a psychosis?" He says, "No." "Well, why are you snapping your fingers all the time?" He says, "Keeps the tigers away." "Tigers away?" The fellow says, "There's no tigers within 8,000 or 10,000 miles of this place." The other fellow says, "Effective, isn't it?" Now there you have something to smile about. We must somehow get that smile. Somebody came back from the east not long ago, and they've been having real cold weather there. Real cold weather, and then there's this one little town in the middle west, you'd call it, from the east. This little boy was skating with other children, and somehow they fell in. The ice gave way, and he was down in this water, hanging on. And one gentleman formed a human chain, and he reached in and gradually got the little fellow and pulled him out. And so that afternoon he was walking down through the town, and he met this lady, and she recognized him. She said, "Oh," she says, "you are the gentleman. Aren't you the man who saved my son this morning?" And he kind of smiled and said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm the one." "Well," she said, "what did you do with his mittens?" That's gratitude, isn't it? So now we've got ourselves in the right frame of mind. That is, we've got ourselves in the frame of mind where we have been smiling. At least, somehow, we've brought out these smiles. Smiles are good, especially when they come from wholesome emotions, as feeling for others and kindliness, sympathy. Those smiles are good. But those smiles may change if your attitude changes due to the force of delusion. You may not be able to hold that smile. When the delusion changes, you may lose that inner emotion. But when the smile comes from the realization of the presence of God within you, of His joy and His peace and His bliss, no matter what stage of delusion you find yourselves in, it will not leave you. That's the only difference to remember. Smile from these different emotions. Constructive emotions are good. But when through delusion the attitude changes, then we must watch out. And we must be so grounded that we can smile in spite of all things. And you can do it if you will feel and know the presence of God. Now there are certain conditions within us and states of consciousness and attitudes which are known as the destructive emotions. We must understand about these things because they have a tremendous effect on our bodily health, especially the destructive emotions, as resentment, as anger and jealousy. These exercise the most potent effect. Then also there are the destructive emotions of worry, fearfulness, disappointment, and especially worry is one of the worst things. Now these all have an effect upon our body. And no matter any emotion, especially of the first three I named, any of those, if you allow it to affect you or touch you, even though the effect is fleeting, does have an injurious effect upon your physical welfare and your mental welfare also. To understand these things, that we must control those destructive emotions because they do have an effect upon our health, not only physical but mental. Now, on the other hand, the positive emotions within us, which are the opposite to these destructive emotions, likewise have a very helpful effect on the body. And especially if that positive emotion comes from the realization of your oneness with God, no sickness, no state of mind can long remain when you feel the presence of God within you. Understand these things. But especially understand about the destructive emotions. They are of delusion. They are not of the unity of God's presence. And especially resentment, anger, and jealousy. Those are very bad. They have a very bad effect upon us. And if we allow those to remain long, we cannot have the smile which we should have, which comes from our oneness with God. And so these emotions, they change the smile which should be pure and be a testimony of the presence of God within us. They change that to something which we are not and should not be. We should realize that. But there is only one panacea, so to speak, and that is the realization of the presence of God within us. Now, in the AY, if you'll read on page 11, it speaks about Larry Masha. And there you see him sitting with that smile on his face, puzzling smile. But that's the smile of the presence of God within him. Now that smile, that's the real smile of happiness, the real smile of joy, which you see on his countenance. Now that smile cannot be erased. If you can once attain that, and then hold it, then you can, as the little poem said, smile when everything goes dead wrong. Because nothing will be going dead wrong. You may be a total failure in this existence, in this life, but within your soul is the presence of God. And you are a success even though you haven't, as Jesus said, a place to lay your head. That's the beauty. Oh, that's the wonderful part of the gift of God's love. If you want to be a smile millionaire, know Him. He can give you that. Having Him, you'll want nothing else. So let us realize that's the key point to this morning's discussion. Now, we should avoid the expression of smiles which are not genuine. I know perhaps this doesn't apply to you at this point, but it's well to be on your guard. The smiles of greed and lust and sarcasm and contempt. You know, some people can smile and inside I don't know what they think of it. That's what it means. Be genuine. If you do not like a person, or if you have any of these things which you are trying to overcome, instead of smiling in that unnatural way, try and feel the presence of God and then smile above these things which are bothering you. That's some of the smiles which you should avoid. Avoid that. Avoid that expression, and especially the smile that comes when inwardly you are subject to these different emotions of which I have spoken. Now, another smile which we should avoid is the smile Master used to speak of many times. He called them galvanized smile. He said, people will meet you, how are you? I'm so happy to meet you. And inwardly they're saying, I could break your neck. Kill you. Those are called, through the Master, galvanized smiles. Galvanized smiles. And when he used to tell about it, he certainly could make you know just what he meant. We have to avoid those. And then there are other smiles which come. For instance, I think it was Shakespeare who said this. I'm not sure about it, but it is something like this: the hearty laugh bespeaks the vacant mind. Now, I approach this with fear and trembling because we have been laughing boisterously. There's no question about that. And I'm not sure Shakespeare said that, but it's something like that anyway. In other words, it illustrates my point. The point is that your smile should not be too boisterous. It should not be from emotion, which makes the smile boisterous. Whereas that smile, which comes from devotion, you understand the difference? Devotion is of a much finer vibration than that boisterous emotional smile. Of course, once in a while it's all right, if there's a definite purpose to do that. But understand that the smile which comes from devotion, remember the smile of Larry Masha, is of a much finer vibration. That's what we must realize. And that comes, as I have said, when you feel the presence of God within you. Now, another smile which comes is when you have friendship with God. When you feel, through the gift of His grace, and perhaps through the channel which He has sent for us, the beloved Master, when you have established God contact and communion and you feel the friendship with Him, that smile which comes is far above this mediocre consciousness of earthly happiness and emotional smile. That presence of God within you, which you have made your own, and thereby established friendship with God, is the greatest thing. And when you have that, then you will smile from your drossless heart. There'll be no dross in it. When the presence of God comes into you, there's no dross left. Such is His power. Such is the glory of His presence. You will smile from His drossless heart, behind which is your peaceful soul. And behind that is the Spirit. Now if you can attain that, if we can attain that, then our smile will be the smile wherein this life is a joy, because we have God with us. If we are to smile under all conditions, we must have a scientific reason behind it. And that scientific reason, otherwise we're just fooling ourselves. And that scientific reason is that we have made contact with God, and that through His grace we have friendship with Him under every condition, during every action. Then we can smile, that smile of a spiritual millionaire, and really be justified in our smile. No one wants to fool themselves. Not very long. You cannot do that. You can make yourself smile even though you're dying. But if you feel the presence of God, perhaps it'll be a joy to die, because you'll be free from this turmoil of this earthly existence. That's the key point in this little talk this morning. Attain and know the presence of God. And so the smile of real happiness will not come from the fulfillment of the objects of senses, through those things which we enjoy through the senses of taste, touch, smell, and so forth. It will not come from that, because that consciousness is your ego, and the smile of the ego is not eternal, but that smile which comes when you turn your attention into the presence of the soul within. That fulfillment will allow you to smile with a genuine smile of the presence of God within you. Because why? That smile is of the soul. The soul is a ray of the eternal Father. Let us understand that. Fulfillment cannot be had in the object of senses. Fulfillment cannot be attained there, because they pass away. How can you be fully satisfied in something that's going to pass away and not be with you? There's no fulfillment there. But we can do this. We can enjoy the things of this earthly existence, these beautiful flowers that we have, such things. We can thoroughly enjoy them if we turn our attention not to the flower, because someone may take the flower away, but to the presence of the soul within. Then no matter what you are enjoying in earthly existence, the fulfillment must come, because in the soul there is fulfillment. In outward objects of senses there cannot be fulfillment. So let us avoid that pitfall. I'm sure the Lord wants us to enjoy this earthly existence. He wants us to enjoy the things He has given to us. The only thing He asks is, do not forget the giver. Now, in everything you enjoy, from your family and relations to earthly conditions and possessions, turn your attention in toward Him. Enjoy with the soul. There'll be no attachment, and you'll never lose. And then you can smile eternally. These are wonderful points. Finally, I have a reference or two from the Master which I'd like to read at this time, because he says it so wonderfully and so much to the point, far better than I can do. From his little book, the Master said, man has falsely identified himself with the pseudo-soul or ego when he transfers his sense of identity to his true being, the presence of God within, the immortal soul. He discovers that all pain is unreal. Think of it. You can do it. The next time you have a severe pain, which I hope you don't have, but if you do, turn your attention into the presence of God at this point and put your soul into it. The pain will disappear, because I've tried it, and I know it's so, through the grace of God. And then he no longer can even imagine the state of suffering. And another point in the little book, Master said, it is foolish to expect true happiness from earthly attachments and possessions, for they are powerless to bestow it. Yet millions of people die of broken hearts, having tried vainly to find in worldly life the fulfillment that exists only in God, the source of all joy. And you see people, I see them all the time, suffering, discouraged. That's why I try, as I promised the Master, perhaps to help a little bit, as he lifted me from this delusion of darkness and uncertainty. The least I can do is to try and help someone as he helped me. And I know it's a great joy to be able to do that, and perhaps repay him and the Heavenly Father just a little bit. And so in conclusion, let us remember the divine smile-producing words of Swami Ram. Peace like a river flows through me. Shut your eyes and feel. Peace like a river flows through me. Let us repeat. Peace like a river flows through me. And then Master's words. Thy bliss, O Father, flows through me. Thy bliss, O Father, like a river, flows through me. Thou art in me. Thou art my life. Thou art my all. Just feel these things when discouragement comes. Turn your attention inward. God will not forsake you. Peace like a river flows through. Peace like a river flows through. You can feel it if you'll just turn your attention inward. So what is the answer? Meditate more. Meditate more. We must meditate more. And then we will rise above this outward consciousness in which these destructive emotions are found and delusion. And while we're in that consciousness, that mediocre consciousness, we cannot know the superior consciousness which comes by being one with God's presence. We must meditate more. And finally, when we meditate more, when through the Father's grace He accepts us as His friend in a conscious way, so that at will we can turn our attention inward, see His light, feel His great love, and know we are not separated from Him. We are not apart. When we can do that, then life, no matter what part we are playing, becomes a joy forever. Then we can truly be a spiritual millionaire, and we can truly have the smile of a spiritual millionaire.